So I fully realize that a lot of you are probably going to click into this video, watch some of it, and be like, oh, that's such generic advice, and then click away. But trust me, I don't know if it's that I'm 25 now and my prefrontal cortex has fully developed, but I'm telling you, this is genuinely what I think contributed to my success with content creation, and it is how I plan on continuing to look at content creation and approach it. Now, right off the bat, if you think that this is a video on how to make good videos or how to make videos like me, I'm very sorry, but this is not that video. It's debatably, in my opinion at least, much more important and more valuable than that. The hard truth is, if you spend your time looking for frameworks or the secrets to success, it doesn't matter how much you watch those videos and absorb those things, because the only way to really learn and grow is by experimentation and just doing things. So yeah, just wanted to kick off this video saying that there is no strategy or framework. It's really funny because I've seen a lot of people pop up and kind of make videos breaking down what they think my strategy is or what the formula that I use is. And it's really interesting to me because it's not like I ever sat down intentionally and thought, okay, this is what I'm doing to try to achieve this outcome. The videos that I've created and a lot of the success that I've found so far has just come from putting out a lot of content and trying new things. That being said, the first piece of advice that I have based off of my experience is don't fall into the tutorial trap. So if you're anything like me, it is very hard for me to stay engaged when it comes to watching a tutorial. So I first got started with video creation in April of 2023, and I've had no clue how to edit. Instead of spending a lot of my time watching tutorials on DaVinci Resolve or CapCut or whatever, I kind of just started to play around in the timeline and put clips together and just figure things out on my own. I'm not gonna lie, it's very hard for me to stay engaged in a 1 hour long video telling me how to use certain tools because you don't have a practical use case for that tool right away. So it's a lot more effective, in my opinion, to start off with something that you want to create in your head and literally just try to make it. And then when you get stuck, Google or go search up how to do that specific thing. So you're kind of picking up the tools as you need them instead of starting off with the whole toolbox, which in my opinion at least, has been a lot more motivating and allows me to see tangible progress earlier on. It feels really full circle to be saying this advice now because if any of you here are OGs from like way back when I first started posting YouTube videos, at the time, I was really focused on learning how to code and making coding projects. And it's funny because in one of those early vlogs, I said the exact same thing, where I had actually fallen into tutorial hell, as I like to call it, or the tutorial trap, where I was just spending a lot of time watching tutorials and it was really demotivating. And I wasn't actually making progress towards coding because it was just so hard for me to follow along and stay motivated in actually finishing that project. So I think with anything, whether it's video creation, coding projects, I think having something in mind that you want to create and then using that as your guide or your compass on how to learn and how to figure out how to make that thing is just so much more of an effective way of getting started and getting into the flow of acquiring that skill. I find this to be really helpful because realistically, when you first get started with something, you don't know what you don't know. When I was first getting started with editing, I didn't know all this terminology, like what is a J cut, what is an L cut, what is a match cut, what is the masking tool. There's like all these terms that I would have no clue what they were, but I only really learned them through, again, just like going down this rabbit hole of, oh, I need to figure out how to do this thing. How do I figure out what the name of this thing is? Maybe it's asking a friend who knows more about video editing. Maybe it's just describing in the Google search what it is I want to make and then seeing if one of the search results like happens to be that thing. It's a very interesting process. You feel a lot more invested in your journey because you're kind of treating yourself as the detective and you're trying to find answers on your own, which makes the process kind of a lot more fun. The second piece of advice that I have, and this probably doesn't come as a surprise to any of you based off what I've said so far, but the most helpful thing that I found for me was volume. Focusing on just creating as much as possible, trying to let go of that perfectionism, and just allowing myself to explore and make things. My one friend always refers to this one story, and it's basically something along the lines of there was this professor who taught the same photography class, but in two different ways. The first way was, I think you had to submit like 10 photos by the end of the term. And then the other one was you can submit as many photos as you want for your final project. I'm probably butchering this story. If so, I'm so sorry. But basically, what had happened was the quality of the photos of the class that could submit as many as they wanted to versus the ones who only submitted 10 were a lot better because when you know that you can just keep creating and making things, you're not putting a lot of pressure on coming up with the perfect shot. So the group that was assigned to only do 10 photos, they probably got really stuck in that perfectionist trap of trying to come up with the best thing, putting a lot of pressure because you know that you have a finite amount that you can submit versus literally just taking a bunch of shots and letting yourself explore without any consequences. When you create in this way and you focus on volume, it really teaches you to let go of the things that hold you back because you know you're just going to create more anyways. You know that, okay, even if I didn't get everything right on this first draft or this version, I can always apply those changes and try to get 1% better in the next time. Honestly, this is kind of the approach that I'm taking right now with YouTube because it has been something that I've been wanting to do for a while. As much as I can question, oh, what style do I want to do? What kind of content do I want to make? I'm not really going to figure out those answers until I actually go out and do it. And so right now I'm making these kind of more yappy, longer form talking head videos that are pretty low effort compared to the more cinematic or like polished work that I usually put on Instagram, but I'm okay with it being a more simple video because it's layers. I can first build the habit and get used to posting on YouTube again. And then over time, when posting on YouTube just feels like a norm in my life, then I can start to add layers to my content. I can explore in different realms. I can add more visuals. But for now, I'm just simplifying it as much as possible so that I can keep posting, keep creating and build up momentum for myself. The next piece of advice that ties in really well with that is take a mindset of experimentation. If you treat every video or everything you create as a little tiny experiment, it kind of makes the process a lot more fun. Whether that be experimenting with a new editing technique or experimenting with how you go about posting something, everything that you create should bring you a little tiny bit closer to figuring out what it is you actually like to do, what you like to talk about, what you like to put out there. So as you make different things, think about what is it that you actually liked in the process of making this thing? What is it that felt good? What is it that didn't feel good? What parts slowed you down? Where was there friction? I think when you key into those little things that your mind or your body is telling you, it makes it a lot easier to start to learn how to enjoy the process of creating versus being so fixated just on the outcome. This, I think, is the best way to develop and improve your craft in something. It's by taking ideas that you have and just going for it and executing on them as much as you can. And I think only through putting in that volume and doing those experiments will you really understand, again, what you like to create and what makes the most sense for you. Because having everything planned out and mapped out doesn't leave a lot of room for random exploration and serendipity. I think a lot of the magic happens when you're loose and you're flexible with things, where you allow yourself to lean into things and change plans as needed. When you leave room for mistakes or happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. The next piece of advice that I would say is treat your feed or wherever you put your content or your art or your work, whether it's videos, coding projects, whatever, treat everything that you create as a museum that has some of your earliest, maybe cringiest work and be okay with having that there, as well as some of your newest work that you're the most proud of. I think that one of the coolest things for me in my journey has just been being able to look at my Instagram feed or my YouTube and just kind of see the progression of what I experimented with and how that has changed over time. I think it's so easy to want to curate things and only show our best work, but there's a lot of merit in keeping your earliest work out there because it feels cool to see both for yourself, but also other people. Because when you do eventually figure out what works, it's helpful for other people and cool for them to see where you started and how things kind of changed from there. I think this idea of looking at it as like a museum is also kind of cool because, again, it lets go of feeling like everything that you post needs to be the most polished, most perfect thing. Realistically, people are not going to remember it. And I don't say that in a bad way. It's just that you're going to be creating so much and you're going to be evolving so much that all that stuff won't even really matter. And it's just nice to look back on for yourself to see your progress and see how much you've grown over time. The final piece of advice, which I think is kind of the glue that ties everything that I've said together, is what's more important than all the technical skills or all the little nuanced details on when to post or what to post is truly just learning to enjoy and love the process for all of its ups and downs. Realistically, you won't create a lot of things if you dread the process. If you feel like you're pulling your teeth out every time you make a video, it's worth stopping and asking yourself why. Where does the friction actually come from? Why is it that creating is so hard? Is it because you just don't know how to do this one thing? Is it because there's a gap between what you want to create and what you envision? When you understand this, it's a lot easier to move forward and know how to keep yourself going. I think a lot of this comes with a lot of self-trust, trusting in your abilities and trusting that you will improve and get better over time. If we let ourselves get demotivated because a video didn't do well or it didn't turn out how we wanted to, then it sucks the joy out of creating. And so that's why just fundamentally liking the process of making a video, taking an idea and starting to act on it, falling in love with that process will sustain you way more than any external outcome or virality or goals or anything like that. So if there's anything, just focus on that. Focus on truly, truly enjoying the process and understanding what is it that you like and dislike about it. I think this is probably one of the healthiest ways that you can go about content creation. And don't get me wrong, there's still gonna be a lot of ups and downs. There's gonna be a lot of questions and you're gonna feel lost for a lot of the time. But if you treat it as a journey that you're on for yourself and not for anyone else, then you're just gonna keep showing up. And showing up is a lot harder than it sounds. Now, at the end of the day, I know that this advice might not work for everyone, and maybe you resonated with some parts and not others. That's totally okay. I think that the best advice is simply the advice that gets you to do something and act on something. So I hope there were some helpful bits in this. This is truly, again, rooted in my experience and just my reflections on the past almost 2 years now of creating. And yeah, it's simple advice that might sound really straightforward, but trust me, it will hit and make sense at some point in time. But anyways, happy creating. If you've stayed this far, thank you so much for listening. And I hope that after you watch this video, you just go out and start making that thing. Until next time, bye.